Lisa here. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to Tarot by the Book. If you are new to this series, what I do in Tarot by the Book is I like to share with you guys a 3-card week ahead spread, just a general for the collective kind of reading, and I like to do that by first reading the cards intuitively, and then we'll dive in together and take a look at what the guidebook has to say about each card. So my intent with this series really is to give you an idea of how a deck reads, both intuitively, and then also we can learn together what the guidebook has to say, how that compares and contrasts with my intuitive read. And it's just a really great way to see how a deck works in action, also to learn a little bit and get a reading for yourself for the week ahead. So if that sounds fun for you, then settle in. We're gonna get started. This week I have randomly used a name generator, a name picker off my list of decks, and we have selected the Mystic Faerie Tarot. Now this book is actually from my original copy, which I believe was from 2007, so this is a first edition. But at some point along the way, shortly after I started my YouTube channel, excuse me, I have a little tickle. At some point after I started my channel, somebody reached out to me and offered to trade the original bordered version, which was the version that I had, for the newer borderless version. So that is what I have here. We are going to be diving in shortly. So with my Tarot by the Book series, I like to put timestamps down below. I do my best to remember to do that so that by the time this video goes up, you can easily skip around to hear my thoughts on the deck, or to just do the reading part, or just the intuitive, or just the by the book part, whatever resonates with you. But I just want to start by sharing with you a little bit about this deck. So this deck first actually came to my attention because I really liked the gentle colors, the sort of fairy sweet vibe of this deck. And more than that, what really appealed to me was that each of the minor arcana suits tells a bit of its own story. So there is actually a cohesive story through each of the suits. So you have a story in the wands, a story in the cups, a story in the swords, and a story in the pentacles. And I really, really loved that. But the borders on the original version, which you can tell by this guidebook actually, this is sort of what the borders were like. They sort of went all the way around. They were pretty big, and it really hemmed in the artwork. So I was really excited to get my hands on the borderless version. I will say that the borderless version is a little bit glossy, whereas the original was just more of a regular sort of satin finish. So it's a really nice cardstock. It's the Llewellyn. I think it's pretty sturdy. It's bendy, but it doesn't chip really on me. I haven't ever had the cards peel or anything like that, but this is one of the decks that I've had for the longest. For a long time I read with just 1 or 2 decks, and this one, once it joined my collection, became a part of my repertoire. But if you are interested in the week ahead reading, then what I'd encourage you to do is take a couple moments, sort of watch me shuffle, and think of perhaps an issue that's been concerning you lately, something that you would like to see the reading be about. I will be working with 3 primary card positions, which I will be reading as if we are reading for the week ahead generally, but you can apply those meanings to your life or to your situation. The 3 positions are going to be the energy of the week, the obstacle we might be facing, and the advice. So with that said, I'm going to focus just a bit here, and then we're going to dive on in. Alrighty. Alright, here we go. We're going to start with the intuitive read. So our energy of the week, we have the 7 of Cups. I'm going to zoom us in a bit on the reading portion here. And then our obstacle of the week, Temperance. And the advice for the week is the Ace of Cups. Beautiful cards. And the artwork on these cards, by the way, is Linda Ravenscroft, I believe is her name. I'm not sure why it's not on the cover of my book, but let's just take a quick peek here just to make sure I'm not saying her name wrong. Yes, Linda Ravenscroft. Okay, perfect. So we're going to be looking at the energy of the week, and we have the 7 of Cups. And here we have a little fae who is gazing into her sort of sphere, crystal sphere here, and she's sort of daydreaming about how things could be, how she wishes they could be. There's a real fantasizing element here that's pulled her away from the present moment and into sort of this place of reverie or of fantasy. And what's really needed when we see this sort of energy and we're looking at sort of what the energy of the upcoming week is, it tells me that we're likely to come up against a lot of distractions, a lot of things that are going to be maybe tugging us off course, likely to throw us off track if we are trying to reach a particular goal. It's going to be very easy this week to sort of get pulled away and to let those distractions sort of get the best of us. When we're looking at the obstacle of the upcoming week, we have the Temperance card. Now, when we're looking at the obstacle position, we're thinking of this card sort of in its shadow aspect. So what is the issue that Temperance might be presenting to us in its more shadowy aspect? We know that Temperance is about balancing forces, and here she's trying to sort of temper whatever's in this bowl with her jug of water. So there's this idea of moderating or making something milder, bringing things into harmony or into balance. So when we're looking at Temperance in its shadow, we're looking at an obstacle this week that something's going to be out of balance, that we're going to be pulled into a place of either excess or perhaps under, what's the opposite of excess? Lack or excess. So we're going to want to watch out for this energy this week. We're going to want to be looking out for where we might be over giving or under giving, where we might be focusing too much on ourselves versus others, or too much on others versus ourselves. Look for those out of balance things. I have a feeling that that's going to really tie into what's pulling us off track. Very much sort of an off-kilter week between these two energies, so something to really, really be aware of. Interestingly, the advice of the week is the Ace of Cups. And the Ace of Cups to me is sort of it's the encapsulation of the cup suit. So we're looking at something that kind of holds all of that energy of water and of emotion. And so the Ace of Cups often brings us opportunities for feeling and emotional experience. And generally, this is a very, very positive card. When we're looking at this in its advice aspect, I would say we need to really focus on what nourishes us this week, which I think will really help to get us back on track and away from this place in Temperance where we might be out of balance. And it might actually also help us to come out of this daydreaming place, because sometimes when we're sort of daydreaming, when we're fantasizing, when we're considering what we could be doing instead, what we're really doing is we're doing that as a way of avoiding something uncomfortable maybe we might be feeling or experiencing. And the Ace of Cups invites you to come into your feelings, but to do that in a really self-loving kind of way. So just to recap, energy of the week, some distractions, some tendency to maybe daydream or focus on things other than the present moment. Our obstacle this week, some imbalance coming through, and our advice is to really focus on the present, focus on nourishing ourselves, focus on what does fill our cups. So that is the intuitive reading. We're going to take a look now at what the guidebook has to say. So I'm going to zoom us back out and we're going to take a peek. So the guidebook for the Mystic Faerie Tarot is quite substantial. It's written by Barbara Moore. We're going to dive first into the Seven of Cups. Where's the cups? There we go. Seven of Cups. After one of her infrequent outings with her friends, which she found wholly unsatisfying, the lonely and unhappy nymph went home. As usual, she looked at her pearl. It was blank. She saw nothing. She remembered the legend and wondered if her memories would be taken from her, leaving her with only a great emptiness. She realized that she was at a crossroads, and a choice was before her that would decide her fate forever. She could embrace the nothingness, or she could admit her mistake and find her dear wood elf. He may not want her, but she could at least try. And that piece would make more sense in the context of the rest of the story of the guidebook, but it gives you a feel for how each card sort of plays a role in that overall story. Here's the message. You're faced with choices, maybe two, maybe more. Maybe you're feeling unsettled and confused. You may not be quite sure what to believe. You're certainly not absolutely sure what to decide. The time has come, though, for you to examine the choices thoroughly and pick one. Somewhere, deep inside you, you do know what you want. Focus on your heart and make a decision. I really like this because it focuses more on the indecisive energy of the Seven of Cups. Intuitively, what I was actually picking up on is more of that avoidance or distraction that card tends to represent at times. So that's really interesting. The two offer sort of a contrasting but interesting viewpoint that you can apply to your week ahead. Let's take a look now at the Temperance card. Oh, I went right to it. Perfect. Wandering into a birch grove, we find a sight of quietly exuberant beauty. Although an apparent contradiction, that is the essence of the Temperance Fae. I'm going to start that part over. Wandering into a birch grove, we find a sight of quietly exuberant beauty. Although an apparent contradiction, that is the essence of the Temperance Fae. She is kin to the Charioteer Fae, but far more mature and experienced. Notice that her headpiece is small and simple, for her power is not so much that of the will of the mind as of holy being. Like the birch trees that surround her, she gracefully bends with the winds of fate, but does not break under pressure. She sits solidly on a stone carved with a single fluid spiral. She sees life and her role in it as a long, single, elegant dance. She endlessly pours water from a jar to a bowl. Her elegant flow of life is seamless and constant. No matter what the circumstance, she always is exactly what she is. To be always who she is requires not rigidity, but fluidity. Without thinking, she imperceptibly adjusts her energy to maintain perfect balance within any situation. Her vibrant yellow gown and wings express her strong, glowing inner strength that arises from such certain confidence. She faces all that comes her way with expectant surety, knowing that she can handle anything with the utmost grace and beauty. Unlike the charioteer, who controls opposing forces with the power of her will, Temperance blends them into a perfect, flawless balance within her very being. The message: while it may be impossible for humans to maintain this state of being indefinitely, Temperance's answer to you is to mind your reactions. Let whatever you do, think, or feel be appropriate and beneficial to whatever you are facing. Don't add to the chaos or drama by overreacting. Your task now is to center yourself and do whatever is necessary to establish balance in the situation. It's worth noting that this guidebook does not have reversed meanings, so we need to read into the context of that meaning to look for the shadow. And so I see it here in the statement, don't add to the chaos or drama by overreacting. So it tells me that the imbalance we may be facing in the upcoming week may have to do with an overreaction or perhaps an over-response to a stimulus, that we need to just sit back and be a little calmer and move slowly and be moderate in our reactions. So that really was helpful there. Let's take a look at the Ace of Cups. So back into the cup suit. And here we get the beginning of the story that we got a little snippet of in the Seven of Cups. Once upon a time, in a strange part of the fairy world, betwixt the land and the water, there was a place that was neither land nor water. In this unlikely and uninhabited space there grew a celandine on a lily pad. Since few fae passed this place, few knew it was there. Fewer still stopped to investigate. Years went by, and the few passers-by began noticing a tiny yet beautiful chalice that seemed to grow from this celandine. If any stayed around long enough, they'd notice it produced odd bubble-like pearls. Or pearl-like bubbles, no one knew for sure which. More time passed, and tales of this celandine grew into legend. It was said to be a magical place between the land and the water, where the seeds of true love grew from a strange cup-like flower. It was further said that if two fae passed through that area together and shared a seed of true love, they would be given a great gift. True love would bind them together forever. But such a gift came with a price. The two would have to successfully overcome many hardships or be fated to a lifetime of great loneliness, separated forever by their failure to nurture the gift of true love. Because more celandines kept growing in the area, the fae said that each time a pearl was shared, a new flower grew. Even the most adventurous fairies explored this land by themselves. While the promise of true love was bewitching, the consequence of being found unworthy was one they were not willing to risk. The message: you are faced with the opportunity to pursue a new relationship. Don't let the fear of what might happen get in your way. Approach it with the intention of making it the best it can be, and if it is a good thing, don't neglect it. Continue to nurture and strengthen it. So we see there in the message the more traditional idea of the Ace of Cups representing new love coming into our life. And that's sometimes the way that I might read the Ace of Cups, but in a more general, applying it to many situations, you can see that I took that message and I sort of applied it to the idea of filling our own cup, of what nourishes us, of what nurtures us, and feeding that. It kind of reminds me of the saying that the grass is greener where you water it, because often we think of, the grass is greener on the other side. The Ace of Cups reminds us to really nurture and feed that which nourishes us. So that is how we look at the messages through the lens of Barbara Moore's descriptions in the guidebook. Overall, what I find about this deck in practice is that it tends to be very sweet and very gentle. It has soft messages, but it does get to the point. I find it a really useful deck to reach for when I need the message to be delivered in a softer way, or if I'm reading for somebody who may be a little intimidated by the tarot. I find that the images and the messages both sort of lend themselves to a supportive approach to a reading, and I really appreciate that about this particular deck. But overall, I find that it does lean a little bit to that lighter side, and for my own personal use, it tends to be one that I don't reach for just general stuff for that reason. I do tend to reach for it when I want that softer touch, however. And it has a special place in my heart because it was one of the first tarot decks that I bought after my main Osho Zen Tarot. And it was one of the first that really took me to a completely different place than the decks that I'd worked with before. The art is absolutely stunning. Linda Ravenscroft artwork is incredible, and this is an incredibly beginner-friendly deck, and it would also be a really wonderful deck for somebody who's a little bit younger or who really enjoys that sort of fairy tale aspect to working with cards. So thank you so much for hanging out with me for this episode of Tarot by the Book. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. I would love to hear your feedback down below. Let me know if this reading resonated with you or how you felt about the intuitive versus the book interpretations of the cards. I'd love to hear your feedback on how you might have interpreted those in the same situation. Remember, as always, that if you want to book a reading with me, you can do that over at supportivetarot.com. Be sure to like this video, hit the subscribe button if you're new, and share this video with anyone you think might want a reading for the week ahead. I will see you all in the next video. Bye!